Shalom. Welcome again to Seekers of Meaning, the podcast and TV arm of Jewish Sacred Aging. I'm your host, Rabbi Richard Adras. Welcome, and I thank you for your time and your interest in joining us today, which I hope, I know, will be a very, very interesting conversation about something that many of us in our generation have lived, are living, or probably will live, and that is how in the world do we begin to negotiate and navigate ourselves through the American healthcare system. It is a family systems issue, as many of you absolutely know. To help us understand this, it is a pleasure to welcome Dr. Lawrence Lazarus, a geriatric psychiatrist, and the co-author with Dr. Jeffrey Poster of this very, very enlightened and enlightening book called Insider's Guide to Quality Affordable Healthcare, subtitled A Practical Strategies to Navigate Our Complex System and Save Money. That's a mouthful, but deservedly so. Dr. Lazarus, welcome. Thank you for joining us on today's Seekers of Meaning. I hope you're well.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be joining you today.
Hello. I know you're in Santa Fe, and that which I understand is beautiful. And thank you for joining us. Is it a good day in Santa Fe, New Mexico? It's really cool, huh?
Yeah, it's a beautiful day. Yesterday we had a lot of rain and it was cold, but just like Philadelphia, you never know what's going to happen the next day. It was a beautiful day today. Thank you.
In Philly the next minute. Anyway, the navigation of the American healthcare system, you write that entering the system sometimes could be identified as like trying to navigate through a jungle. And I think that's a lot of truth in that. How difficult is it to take control of one's healthcare? How do you begin to even approach this? We have people who may be listening or watching this who may be having to enter the system soon for an exam, through an operation, through a procedure, a test, et cetera, et cetera. How do you begin to navigate this?
Well, it's a very complex system. For example, if you need to go into a hospital, you're often assigned to a different doctor who you've never seen before. It's called a hospitalist. If you need to see your doctor or for an appointment and you call, sometimes you're told that, he doesn't have any openings for 2 or 3 months. And you'll have to wait or go to an emergency department. So it's very difficult. And you need to, just like anything else in life, you need to study the system. You need to be proactive. You need to have somebody help you if you're not able to navigate it alone. Just like you said, if you're in the jungle, you want to have a guide. You want to have somebody who can show you how to get out of the jungle and how to be safe.
Yeah, it's just the system. You lose a sense of your own control.
Yes,
it's a different environment. You go into even an urgent care. It's a different environment. How much the more so a hospital? It's a different vocabulary. You're using different and they put sometimes a band around you with a number or whatever, and it's not symbolically. You literally, in essence, lose part of your identity. You take another identity. So you talk about having that guide. So there is such thing as a patient advocate or a care manager. You spend some time in the book advising people that you really, really, really need that. How does that work? And how do you get one?
If you're elderly and you're maybe having a little problem associated with getting older, maybe your memory is not as good as it was before, or things seem to take longer and more time, it's good to have somebody in the family who you trust and is reliable and is available to serve as your advocate. In other words, it's like having a guardian angel. That person, if it's a family member who knows you feel comfortable with, you don't have to feel embarrassed about taking your advocate when you have a visit with a doctor. So the advocate could even be your second set of eyes and ears. And let's say you're in a doctor's office and you don't understand what the doctor's talking about because he's using a lot of medical terminology. So you or your advocate could say, doctor, could you please explain this in a more simple way so that I can understand it? Your advocate could actually be taking notes during that interview with the doctor, or even have a tape recorder so that you and whoever you choose as your advocate can review what the doctor has said, say, during a doctor's visit. If you go into a hospital, as you say, it's very frightening. You lose a sense of control. They take your clothes away and put a gown on you. You're in an environment that's completely different from your home. It's very scary. So getting back to the advocate, if you unfortunately have to be hospitalized and you're frightened and scared, which is a normal reaction, it's good to have your family member or your advocate along with you so that the advocate could be just what that term means. Could be on your side, can be an interpreter, can be a source of communication with your family. Let's say you don't want everybody in your family calling you. Well, your advocate can take the phone calls and could serve as a liaison between your doctor and what's happening in the hospital and your family member and friends. Now, if you don't have a family member or a close friend to serve in the role of advocate, you can go online to Patient Advocate Foundation.org. It's PAF.org. And if you go on that site, you put in the city where you live, and you could hire somebody to serve as your advocate. Now, once you do that, whether it's a family member or somebody you hire, it's important to write out what you want your advocate to do, what you don't want them to do. And be sure to give that agreement that you have with your advocate to your doctor, and if you're hospitalized, to the people who are taking care of you in the hospital. And you could revise what you want the advocate to do or not do as time goes on.
So all of that is good, and I did that with my mom, and I know a lot of people do have somebody come in and be their eyes and ears. But there's a significant amount of people who in this country, and some may be watching or part of our audience, they don't have that family member, and they don't have the money to hire somebody, even on a short-term basis. Who protects them? How do they protect themselves?
Well, if you're hospitalized, the hospital has staff members or volunteers that can come in and spend time with you and serve as that advocate. Of course, if the hospital is choosing the advocate, then the advocate has some obligation to conform to what the hospital rules are, but they also have the obligation to serve in the best way that they can to make your stay in the hospital less frightening and less scary. So hospitals have different hospitals will call an advocate by different names. It might be a patient coordinator, a patient caregiver. So you can request that in the hospital. The other thing you could do is try to form a good relationship with one of the nurses or a nurse's aide that you're working with, and try to get a good relationship with them and tell them how you feel. If you're frightened or you don't understand something, they could serve as a communicator between you and, let's say, your doctor or other staff members in the hospital.
In the book, you spend some time talking about a PHR, personal health care record. Does that mean I should just write down every piece of medication, write my own medical history, tuck that away, put it in my iPhone? Is that what this is?
Yes, personal health care record, PHR, is very valuable, especially in this changing healthcare system. Let's say you have to change doctors because your insurance has changed or your doctor has left town, and you get a new doctor or healthcare provider. If you have all that information on a personal health record, you can, as you said, you can store it on your phone and take it with you. So God forbid if you have to go to an urgent care center or to an emergency department, you have that information very handy. And so it's much more efficient and convenient to have that information and to prepare a healthcare record in advance. You don't want to wait until you have an illness. The best time to prepare a healthcare record that has all your information. It may even have your blood type, operations you've had, and of course, all the medications that you're taking and the doses of each medication. So in other words, you're carrying your healthcare record with you that could be invaluable.
Yeah, we've done some podcasts a couple of months ago was the last one we did on something that you touched on, which keeps coming up over and over again. And another reason why to write all this down, and not only on a piece of paper, but if you have the phone, stick it on the phone. And that is that so many people are on so many different medications and may go to so many different doctors. And not necessarily does Dr. 1 tell Dr. 2, or the one pill talks to another one. We're starting to see, and I like your opinion on this, the role of the pharmacist who has to fill these prescriptions being like a front line of defense, is calling you up and say, wait a minute, you got 6 different medications, medication number 2 and medication number 6, they really don't get along with each other. You should really go back and talk to your doctor. How do we begin to deal with that?
Well, what we're talking about is developing a healthcare team.
Mm-hmm.
Part of the team, of course, is a close relative or a friend where you're a patient advocate. And the pharmacist could be very, very valuable because they keep a record. If you're using the same pharmacy each time, they keep a record of your medication, and they will tell you that medication 2 does not go along well with medicine 5, and they can warn you, and they can also notify your doctor that there could be a dangerous medication interaction. So your team consists of yourself, of course, the most important member of the team, your advocate or family member who's serving that purpose, and also your pharmacist can be very, very valuable in ways that you already mentioned about drug-drug interactions. Medication errors and hospital and medical errors are the 3rd or 4th leading cause of premature health problems, or even worse. So the more you can organize this team that's serving your purposes, the more safety you have, and the less risk you have for medication or hospital surgical errors.
And we're talking with Dr. Lawrence Lazarus, geriatric psychiatrist, the author of this very, very, very comprehensive guide, Insider's Guide to Quality, Affordable Healthcare, practical strategies to navigate our complex system and save money. It's a lot to get on the T-shirt. I would assume, Dr. Lazarus, this available at Barnes & Noble, usual bookstores, and Amazon, et cetera, et cetera. Is that correct?
Yes, it's very available on all those places you mentioned. I'd like to say something about the book.
Yeah.
It doesn't read like a novel.
No, it doesn't.
And it's not as interesting as a novel. The best way to use the book is to use the index. It's right. Kind of like an encyclopedia, that you don't want to read the whole Encyclopedia Britannica. So the best way to use the book is if you're having some question about personal health record or patient advocate, just look it up in the index and just read the section that's pertinent to what you're dealing with at the present time. Don't attempt to read the whole book.
No. That's, I'm glad you mentioned that. It is a agenda specific. Let me use that term because I just thought of it. Way of approaching. In other words, I have this. I'm being diagnosed with this. I may have to go into the hospital. I can look this up and some of the tips, et cetera, within your book, and you're going to get a guide and some very, very sound, practical advice, as the subtitle talks about. One of the things that is very interesting, I've had this conversation with physicians, and you're in practice in psychiatry, and and this is part of the technological revolution that's surrounding the American healthcare system, which is equally a jungle filled with many traps. I get a call from the doctor, or I don't get. I have these symptoms. I have no idea what these symptoms. So instead of making the appointment with my doc, I'm going to go to the great God internet, and I'm going to enter all these symptoms, and it's going to come up with all the things that I could possibly have, as opposed to going to the doc and saying the same thing. How do you, especially in the mental health world, do you advise patients to just check things out on the internet first before they talk to you, or stay away from the internet because who knows what that means?
Well, you have to use your judgment. If you're technologically sophisticated and you like to look things up, you can do what you suggested. You can put in your symptoms, but try not to be frightened when you have a list of 6 or 8 conditions that might be associated with that list of symptoms that you put into the internet. Artificial intelligence is coming to the fore, and it's coming to the medical healthcare system. And just the word artificial intelligence is kind of a scary term, but it's going to enable health professionals and the public to be able to tap into the knowledge that the healthcare system has. But you have to use it intelligently and not be too frightened from what you begin to find out through either artificial intelligence, or if you Google your symptoms, not to be overly frightened. You could write down what you've learned and then bring that list of items to your doctor's appointment and share those ideas with your doctor, and then listen very carefully to what your physician or other healthcare professional is advising.
So I want to pick up on, because you just mentioned it, and it's in your book, chapter 14, on the use of new technologies. So you're right. Artificial intelligence is here. There was a conference last year that I spoke at Arizona State University and their Jewish Studies department, a whole conference on the use of AI and robotics in caregiving and medicine. Last month, there was this huge article in the New York Times in the business section of all places about apps using artificial intelligence to actually create like avatars who would talk to you and be your friend, and you could have a conversation with them. The medical apps on the phone, you can do your EKGs and send them to your doctor. And there's mental health apps. There's people doing therapy online, spiritual therapy, psychotherapy, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Talk to me about how you see this happening. And this is here. You're right. It's not going away. How do we begin to understand it? What do you think, in your professional opinion, are the benefits of this?
Well, the benefits are that doctors and patients can use these new technologies. Let's say you have a heart condition. You can learn how to get an EKG on your telephone, and then that can be sent immediately to your doctor's office or your heart specialist. The problem with all these technologies is that it takes a lot of time to understand them, to decide what you want to use or not use. And it's kind of frightening. If you're not technologically sophisticated, and I'm not, I have to confess, at my age, I'm more than 65 years old. I'd like to think I was still 65, but I'm not too technologically sophisticated. So I often call my son or my daughter and have them explain it to me, or I'll go to some community college and take a course in how to use artificial intelligence or how to use the cell phone to tap into these new technologies to your advantage. The main thing, and I have a problem with this myself, I get a little nervous with these technologies. And I have to step back and say, do I really want to use this? Who can I call to understand it better? Should I be using it? So you can ask a family member, you ask your physician, what technologies are best for you to use and which are not advantageous.
Yeah, I share. I also call my daughter and sometimes my granddaughter, so I know exactly the ballpark you're playing in, and it can be overwhelming because the technology constantly is evolving much faster than in many cases we're evolving. But you're right; it is here, and it can be a blessing in many ways. And the idea of actually going and taking a class and sort of like brushing up on your own skills is something that I think is a very, very good idea. The one of the other chapters in the book talks about something else that I see more and more of not only our contemporaries, but other generations gravitating to as they attempt to navigate the healthcare system. And that is what you write in the book of capital C, capital A, capital M, complementary alternative medicine and the practices that are associated with them. Talk to me about how you see this integrated into our American Western, quote unquote, medical system.
Well, these complementary approaches have a lot to do with Eastern philosophies, has to do with Buddhist principles, and they can be very, very useful. For example, I meditate every morning for about 20 minutes to quiet my brain down. And I find that I'll check my pulse after I've meditated, and I find my pulse is a lot slower. I feel rejuvenated. And it's just a good practice, and it helps you get in touch with your spirituality also. Now, other techniques that have come into the mainstream of medical schools, they are teaching these complementary Eastern approaches to medicine, like yoga, just walking, taking good walks, getting a massage, hypnosis is a very useful technique for some patients. So these approaches have become more into the mainstream, and they're taught in medical school so that doctors are more familiar with them, and they can work with practitioners in a complementary way to what your own physician is doing. A physician might recommend that you go into some yoga classes or practice meditation, or see a practitioner who's familiar with these techniques. They're very, very useful. And they're becoming more accepted by the Western medical establishment.
Yeah, I'm glad you talked about that. That more and more medical schools are opening themselves up to some of these conversations. I know some of the work that we do in Jewish Sacred Aging talks about this stuff, and of course, the Jewish medical system is a holistic oriented system, understanding that the mind, the body, and the soul are all interconnected. And all you have to do is read your Maimonides from the 12th century, who talked about aerobics, the importance of aerobics and heart rate and keeping the body moving. This is part of the Jewish medical model. Dr. Lazarus, you're a practicing geriatric psychiatrist. Jewish Sacred Aging, our major audience are people over the age of 50. The Pew study of our American Jewish community that came out in 2020 showed that just about half of the entire Jewish community in the United States are people over the age of 50. So, in your experience and in your practice, what do you see as we get older, as our age begins to face more and more of the entrance and becoming part of the medical system? What are we most afraid of?
Well, we're most afraid of getting older and having pain and discomfort. Older people, it's been found, are not really that worried about dying. Dying is just a natural part of life, but they're more concerned about the quality of their life and not wanting to be a burden on their family, not wanting to suffer and have excessive pain. And so the Jewish people sometimes will turn more to religion. The Kabbalah that was written over 2,500 years ago is sort of a very good guide for older people who are dealing with these kinds of issues. The Kabbalah is trying to help people get more in touch with their spirituality, have joy in their lives, be healthy, and have a better quality of life. You're probably more familiar with the Kabbalah than I am.
Go ahead, you're doing very well.
Rabbi Address. But there's a wish on older people's part to review their life, to find more meaning in life, to find a closer connection to God or to a sacred spirit, if you want to call it that.
Right.
And this is very, very comforting for older people. The Kabbalah actually gives a guideline of how you can be more in touch with your spirituality, how you can have more joy in your life, how you can avoid obsessing about things you might have done in your lifetime that continue to worry you. It's a very good guide. And I can mention a book that I've just read this book 2 or 3 times. It's a book by Dr. Karen Milstein. It's called Attuning to the River of Kabbalah. And this is a much easier book than the book that Dr. Forster and I read, which is more encyclopedic. This is only about 50 or 60 pages. And it gives you a guide. It's very comforting to older people to feel more in tune with their lifetime spirituality, to feel a closer connection to God, to be more active in the Jewish community, which is very important and helps older people to avoid the risk of loneliness. Loneliness and isolation has been found to be a very, very sad and unfortunate condition that older people sometimes experience. So the Kabbalah is and it has a lot that's similar to Buddhism. A lot of the principles are very, very similar to the Buddhist principles of finding meaning in life, improving the quality of your physical, mental, and spiritual aspects of your life.
Yeah, that's why we always advise congregations that if you really want to look at this in a really powerful Jewish context, read your Maimonides, because all of this is right out of much of his writings, and also you're channeling a little bit of your Viktor Frankl in his Man's Search for Meaning book, when he says, when you ask the question, what is the meaning of my life? That's the wrong question. The right question is, how can I live a life so that it has meaning? And especially as we get older, and this is why I wanted to raise this question to you as a geriatric psychiatrist, we see this, and especially in our generation, the boomer generation, real people wanting meaningful answers to what they're going through in their life right now. All these, because we're living longer, and so many different changes and transitions that we're going through on a whole different variety of levels. I need a mature spirituality. I don't need any more bubble vices and miracles. So I need something that speaks to what I'm going through. And so, thank you for sharing that, because I think you're right. Because in the end, what the tradition basically says is, you're alive, grab hold of life, enjoy life, live your life, find meaning in that, stay as healthy as you can. The difference is that in some of the literature now between this concept of health span versus lifespan. And like you were alluding to, you may want to, they're working to allow you to live to 120. But if you live to 120 curled up in a fetal position in a nursing home, some would say this is not living.
That's right.
The health thing has become more and more important as we get older, just as you're alluding to. Before we run out of time, piece of advice, if you could just summarize this encyclopedic book for people as they are about to enter the healthcare system, what would that one piece of advice be?
Well, the advice is to try to avoid the healthcare system and doctors by staying as healthy as you can. And you've heard this so many times: exercise, the right diet, closeness with your family and friends, staying in tune with your lifetime spirituality, maybe beginning to go back to the temple, which helps you feel connected to the community, the Jewish community. The problem is, as you get older, you sometimes get a little lackadaisical about taking care of your health by the principles of eating well and exercising. You really have to decide that you're going to do it. And if you do that, you can live a much healthier, much happier, much more connected kind of life.
Dr. Lawrence Lazarus, the author of Insider's Guide to Quality, Affordable Healthcare, subtitled Practical Strategies to Navigate Our Complex System and Save Money. Available to all local good outlets and, of course, the internet as well. Dr. Lazarus, thank you very, very much for joining us and for sharing some of your expertise, and good luck with the book. And just take care and stay healthy. Enjoy New Mexico.
Thank you. Shalom Aleichem, and thank you for inviting me to join you.
Aleichem Shalom, Toda Rabba, Hatzlacha. And to all of you, thank you again for making time and giving us your time to share with today's edition of Seekers of Meaning. We appreciate your time. If you have any suggestions about future programs or ideas, feel free to email me at rabbiaddress@jewishsacredaging.com. Check us out. Check out the website, jewishsacredaging.com. Easy for me to say. And the donate button to help us continue these programs. In the meantime, Until we see each other again, I want you to take care of yourself. I want you to take a big shout out to our producer, Steve Lubetkin, because all of these podcasts come from the Lubetkin Media Studios in beautiful Cherry Hill, New Jersey. So thank you, Steve. Thank you, Dr. Lazarus. Thank you. Take care of yourself. Stay healthy. Stay safe. Be kind.